So, 2010, continuing our sort of loose Lost in Time theme for May. Last week, with 1969, we saw the team get accidentally sent to the past. Now we pick up with them while they're living in the future. Carter is talking with her husband, but has bad news that she's still not pregnant. But the doctor says you just have to keep trying. Lord jeez. Have to keep having hot sex with my smoking genius wife. Work, 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 work. Hubby here is an ambassador, working with their alien allies, the Ashan, that have helped build them this bold new world.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States. My fellow Americans.
So, dystopian future. You can check that box now. They don't make Kinsey president if things are going well. Kinsey is here to provide backstory that 10 years ago, SG-1 first made contact with the Ashan, who agreed to share their technology and to help Earth fight the Goa'uld. Carter, Daniel, and Teal'c are here to receive medals for their pivotal role in making all this happen, but of course, none for Chewbacca once again. Afterwards, they shoot the breeze. Hammond has passed away, O'Neill has second thoughts about the alliance with the Ashan, and even Dr. Fraser's a little bitter that, thanks to the Ashan's advanced technology, she's become obsolete. I mean, yeah, sure, I know I'd be a bit miffed if aliens showed up with a robot that can make cracks about Captain Janeway. Stay in your lane, Gorblatt. So Dr. Fraser finally tells Carter, look, why don't you just let me give you a checkup? A second opinion, seeing as how you've been trying to get pregnant for 3 years and you haven't. I mean, typically that would mean a medical issue. Some kind of tissue damage, or blockage, a low sperm count, and also mistakenly think it works if you do it in the butt. So Dr. Fraser runs some tests and shows undeniable proof that Carter's ovaries are damaged. And this is not the kind of thing we're continuing to try is going to sort that out. It doesn't matter how many times you try calling the pizza joint if their phone doesn't work. Anyone who does work in fertility, you can feel free to use that analogy. I'm only too happy to do my part. So, there's 3 big questions here. How did this happen? Why did the Ashan doctors tell her she was fine? And is this considered a consultation outside of her insurance network? So she heads off to go work on her current project, which is trying to turn Jupiter into a star. You know, like with fusion, not, oh darling, you will be magnificent with your name in lights. But it's not working out. They need to have a whole new approach to make it happen. And Carter thinks that she might have one. Only it would take weeks to do it using our computers. But it could be done in no time if she used their pimped-out Ashan rig. Well, that was actually all part of the plan. Dr. Fraser swings by so they can see if there's some folder labeled evil plans or something. A search reveals that the worldwide birth rate has plummeted. Everywhere the anti-aging treatment has been given, so if this was deliberate, it would explain why they're keeping their mouths shut about it. At dinner that night, with Teal'c and Daniel joining in, they note that the Ashan are probably controlling the media to prevent the information from spreading, and Dr. Fraser even shares that they likely murdered General Hammond, actually, in order to keep the secret. They said that it was a heart attack, but there had been no sign of it. Everyone just trusted it because the Ashan were heroes. Well, as if this day couldn't get any better, realizing how screwed they are, they discover that it cannot be unscrewed. Things are so terrible, there is no way to resist this. If they got everybody in the entire world to rally together, well, it wouldn't mean shit. The Ashan defeated the Goa'uld for us. And we're not going to defeat the Ashan then if they did that. War doesn't operate under rock, paper, scissors rules. What's more, the off-world allies have been severely diminished. And besides which, the Ashan controlled the Stargate. We've been boxed into a corner here. All the Ashan have to do is just run out the clock and take control of the planet once everyone just finally ages to death with no new generation to take over. Dicks. So the only choice left then, if you have no future, is to try to alter the past. I mean, that's just logic, people. Use it. They bring up the events of 1969 to formulate the spine of the plan. We need to find a solar flare that's just right, and the pimped-out Ashan rig can actually find those. and we can send a message making clear that they should never meet with the Ashan to get the ball rolling back in the year 2000, thus changing time from that moment going forward. And for the better. I can't imagine anything that happened in the early years of the 21st century that we might regret. Carter goes to see O'Neill, now retired to his place in Minnesota, who is still somewhat bitter about no one listening to him, that the Ashan were a problem and were going to be the destruction of the human race. In fact, he pulls out an industrial-sized can of I told you so. He is also highly skeptical of fix our problems with time travel, which admittedly goes both ways. On the one hand, once you've used time travel, you've got to put it on the board of plausible things. On the other, it's going to pretty much always sound stupid when you say, I believe we can solve our problems with time travel. O'Neill, though, doesn't really give a shit either way. The world, including Carter, ignored everything he said, made their choice. He has no interest in trying to save it anymore.
No more saving the world, just a nice pond with no pesky fish in it. And the single most pressing issue in my life is whether or not to get a dog.
Actually, I thought you want to know that a message arrived from the future saying not to get a dog. Oh, and also, that bubblegum-flavored ice cream you thought about trying wasn't really worth it. So without O'Neill, they'll have to handle this themselves. The biggest problem is going to be making sure that they can get a GDO in order to get the SGC of the past to open the iris. Otherwise, none of this is going to matter if a message is just a spray of radiation across the back of the room. So they're heading to the Cheyenne Mountain complex of the present, which is now a museum.
Okay, now we're walking.
How many times do you think you can say that in that voice before you just swallow a bottle of sleeping pills? So they suffer their way through the tour to get to the control room, where they can finally get down to business. Although I don't know if the tour heads there.
And we're walking.
Well, if it didn't, I'm thinking it does now. O'Neill's done all the heavy lifting already, gathering up supplies that might be helpful like Zat guns. But the problem is that the GDO here is a fake. It's a replica that it's obviously not going to work then. Also, our buddy, the guy who dials the gate all the time, pops in wanting to know what the hell's going on. In an ad-lib, he's named Walter, after Walter Radar O'Reilly from MASH, and the name was made official thanks to this. He's not exactly comfortable with them coming in and snatching weaponry, but with a promise they'll return everything by Thursday, he agrees, but if not, they lose their deposit. He also tells him the real GDO is in the Oval Office, but Carter says that her hubby will get it for them. Wait until he finds out how they're cutting the reproductive rate by 90%. I'm sure he'll be livid.
Oh my God. It's supposed to be a third of that.
Stupid cock-blocking aliens. He explains that the Ashan felt that human population growth was unsustainable to the point that investing in Earth's defense was a waste of time and resources. Curtailing population growth was thus a compromise between them. There's much debate on whether or not population is going to grow to unsustainable levels. I'm not going to get into that. Just note that it's a common fixture in works such as ZPG, for example, a film about such a thing. Or if you want something fairly recently, you could check out the Amazon series Utopia. If you've ever said to yourself, am I doing enough to prove that I hate myself? So Carter explains that whatever the concerns, the Ashan are exterminating them just as surely as the Goa'uld would have. And so the only choice is to undo the damage. She asks him to swap the fake GDO for the real one for her, and don't tell anyone any of this, because he's likely going to be killed, and obviously that would make it pretty hard to complete the delivery. Meanwhile, Carter uses pimped out Ashan rig and its connection to a massive number of satellites in the solar system to be able to predict a solar flare. So that's good. Much better to know when it's coming than standing around the gate whistling for weeks on end, hoping one shows up. Well, good news. Hubby's got that GDO, only there's some tension here.
What are you going to do with it? Send a message. To who? To whom?
What I like about this dynamic between them is that there's two explanations, or a combination, for O'Neill's dislike of him. It could be that it's because of hubby's role in the Ashan takeover. He obviously is pretty high up if he can swap things on the president's desk. So consequently, O'Neill doesn't like him for his role in that. But it could also be jealousy, because it's an open secret that he and Carter have some less than professional feelings for each other. And it's possible that this makes him naturally dislike her husband. Or again, of course, there's the possibility of a combination. Could be one of those, it's bad enough she had to marry someone else, but did she have to marry the man who helped to book the reservations for the apocalypse? To make things worse, hubby wants Carter kept out of this. So he says that he'll only allow O'Neill to have it if he gives his word that she will not be involved. He doesn't know the specifics of their plan, but since it uses the GDO, well, then it has to control the Stargate, and since that's a heavily defended area with automatic defenses, he'd rather not let his wife do something illegal around there. Otherwise, it could look like the Ed 209 scene from RoboCop. Of course, after the handoff, Carter insists on staying to help anyway. I mean, it's pretty logical. If it fails, it's the end of the human race. This is the Hail Mary. Once you've hit time travel and that fails, that's it. I mean, the only thing left after time travel is genies and it was all just a dream. And if it succeeds, well, then it won't matter where they are because history will be rewritten. I mean, that is the point of history, after all, so that everybody knows exactly where they're supposed to be standing. Well, there's a complication. O'Neill is recognized by one of the Ashan big cheeses who wants to know what's going on with him. So, having to make small talk with the villain, O'Neill finally gets a chance to do the good stuff when Teal'c and another Jaffa comes through and begins shooting people. Daniel and O'Neill have Zats to help provide cover while Teal'c starts dialing. Now, fortunately, there's an actual DHD instead of their hacked-together version in order to open up the gate faster. Man, let me tell you, when you have to save the world, the last thing you want to have to rely on is a rotary phone. O'Neill Batmans in while Teal'c and Daniel work to destroy the defenses. I mean, the Hail Mary reference wasn't just a cliche. This is really like a football game when you get down to it. If you protect the runner, you can get the ball where it needs to go. In this case, through the gate. Unfortunately, O'Neill is tackled at the 5-yard line. So Daniel tries to rush in and recover the fumble, but he can't, so it's down to Carter. Oh, there have been high hopes for this rookie this season, and she could go all the way! Touchdown! In the present day, while there's some confusion as to how SG-1 can be calling in, saying they're coming through when O'Neill is sitting right in the control room. But better safe than being flattened into a layer of neutrons, so the iris opens. The note comes through, saying under no circumstances to go to that planet. It's covered in blood and written in Jack's own handwriting. Well, all that's enough for Hammond. He has it pulled from the dialing computer to make sure they don't even do it by accident. No one wants to destroy the world because of an oopsie. 2010 gets a stamp of recommended. While it could be argued to play with the rules of time travel that were established in 1969, they seem justifiable for story purposes. The potential future that we see is tempting with its advanced tech and seeming utopian appearance. All good stuff for a future dystopia that's in the Brave New World style. We get a chance to see outside of Carter here briefly the desire to have a child that wouldn't normally be possible in the show, which shows once again how in alternate realities or something you have an opportunity to see aspects of the character you normally wouldn't. In this case, it shows that even legends have common human desires that we ourselves might. Her struggling with infertility, even if only for a time, goes to a place that she likely never could have gone in the show. And it also makes us wonder, especially about her choice at the end. Making Carter be the one to do it, to get the message through, suggests that she is personally restoring what has been cruelly stolen from her. No one else has that kind of personal stake in the outcome. She has been physically and likely emotionally scarred by what the aliens have done, so she fights back. As I said, one must also wonder about the degree that Carter's marriage is affecting O'Neill here. Considering his less than receptive response to Carter, it could be that he harbors a personal grudge against her for either marrying another man or for not having his back when he tried to warn about the Ashan. If the former, is his reversal similar to Carter's, a personal one rather than an idealistic one, to get a second chance with her? It's open to consideration. So while this takes time to explore the world it has built, it also leaves room for character in it. And that 1-2 punch plays to Stargate SG-1's strengths. Nicely done. Next time, the story continues with 2001,